Probably just on the wrong floor. And so you turn around to tell her to maybe go down to the front desk, but when you look around for her, she isn't there anymore, and she's just disappeared in thin air. Now at this point, most people will run back to their room, put on the deadbolt and chain, tie a chair, put on the door handle perhaps, the other help, so you can have some food every time around for it.
Now, again, my name is Chris. It's a pleasure to welcome you along tonight. Of course, this last year has been very interesting for us, as it has been for everyone. And we're really, really glad to be able to do these tours again. Now, we are operating in interesting times, and we have to be really aware of people trying to get around us on the sidewalk. So occasionally I might ask everyone just to step in towards me so that we're in an... So tonight, it's my job as a historian to link together those true ghost encounters that people like you have with the reasons, the people who died and the ways they died to give rise to these ghosts. So a bit of true ghost stories, some true crime, sounds good?
Yep.
Great, because if it doesn't, you're in the wrong place for the next hour. But if it does seem like you're in the wrong place, if you were just dragged along by someone and you're a total unbeliever, it's okay, because the tour is only an hour, you'll probably survive. And if you don't believe in ghosts, the chances are you just haven't had a chance to hang out with me long enough. Because eventually everyone here will have some kind of creepy encounter, the likes of which we'll talk about tonight in our time together. We'll tell a story about the Empress, we'll head slowly through Old Town, we'll get to Bastion Square for tales of the public hangings at the very end of the tour. But to get there, we have got to go through Helmkin Alley, the most haunted stretch of pavement in town. And if someone is going to encounter a ghost during the tour, it will probably be there. So stay tuned. But seeing as we are passing the Empress Hotel, which has to be the most haunted hotel in the city, I've got to tell you at least one story about that place, right? So let's head there now. Because I want to make sure we get to Bastion Square to finish off, so we better start moving. But I can tell you a little bit about what used to be here before the hotel was built. Does anybody know what used to be here? No? Well, I can tell you about that just over here. So they hear the sound of rope creaking on wood, and they would see this shadowy body swinging back and forth and back and forth. Now, many staff over the years experienced that there, but if we fast forward to the 1990s, someone from the hotel was up there, and they looked out from the windows and thought, wow, there's a tremendous view of the harbor from up here. Seems a real shame we just have it full of old furniture when we could rent it out. Turn it, a hand reaching out, something like this happens. Now, ultimately, Victoria is crawling with ghosts. The Empress Hotel is the kind of building that looks like it should have some ghosts, and it certainly does. But we've got time for one story. The Tower Wing. This steep, slate-covered, cavernous roof, which has a big attic area underneath it. And in the old days, they didn't use it for anything but storage. Just like in a mansion, where there would be a place to put the old furniture. Cover it with sheets, let it gather dust. But in the 1950s, a young man went up there, took a chair out, not intending to bring it down to a guest room though. What was he going to do with it? It's an interesting... If you're new to Victoria, it's important to know that we have bike lanes.
Okay.
And they look like this. So before you step into one of these, always make sure you look both ways.
Yeah.
Because we have more e-bikes per capita than any other city in the world. And I actually have no idea if that's true, I just made it up. But it's quite possible. And I don't want any of you to be killed by an e-bike, because that would be a terrible way to die, right? So please, watch out when you're crossing the bike lanes. The other safety announcement I have is that this And it was a real dive. And down in the basement, there was a pub. It was nicknamed the Bucket of Blood because it was that rough. It's another reason why we won't stay here for long. Yes, it's busy, but also my story might put these people off their meal. So we won't annoy them by hanging out here too long. So remember the building where the pub is now, though? It used to be a bank. Now this building that I'm standing in front of, which is now a Lush cosmetics store, it of course was not always a Lush cosmetics store. Long before Lush was invented, back in the early 1900s, this was downtown Victoria's funeral parlor.
Ah. Oh.
I like that response. That was
More
Now,
go.
across the street
Ay.
is the old Albany Hotel. That's in the 1950s, where a woman named Lily lived. And now, I'll tell you the story around the corner in a place that's much quieter, and we'll tie together the old bank, which is now a pub, the Lush, which is now a funeral, which used to be a funeral parlor, and Lily's apartment in the Albany Hotel. We'll tie all of this together just around the corner.
Funeral parlor. Yeah. Listen daw. Ang ganda ng kulay sa gabi. Lugar.
Has everyone been in here? No? We've got to. It's kind of like a chocolate shop.
Chocolate chips.
Now, Charles and Leah Rogers founded the company back in the 1880s, and they moved their shop here shortly after this building was built. And so much of the stuff is original. That's why it's a national historic site inside. It is kind of like a chocolate shop museum. The chocolate is really good too. And we're here because Charles and Leah never left. They've been here all along, in ghostly form now, of course, because, well, they're long dead. But they weren't nasty, and they didn't die a gruesome death. These are two things that give rise to nasty ghosts, right? If you're a nice person in your life, and you just die of old age, chances are you're not going to come back as a vengeful spirit. You're just going to come back as a presence. People will probably feel, people might encounter in many ways. And here, well, they're the kind of ghosts that you want to have around. Charles and Leah are helpful. They help rearrange the candies, they help dust off the shelves, clean the mirrors, and they help with the displays. At Christmas time, they always have big artificial trees, one on each side, and they have boxes of decorations, which the staff very carefully put on the trees. But then they'll come back the next day and find the trees have been just totally redecorated. And they know who this is. It's Charles and Leah. They also know when they hear the sound of rocking chairs creaking back and forth in the back storeroom. Because Charles and Leah, after spending a long day of making and selling chocolate, they would often fall asleep in their rocking chairs in the old candy kitchen. It's sweet, isn't it? The staff would find them the next day still slowly rocking. Now, the rocking chairs haven't been there for many, many years. But today's staff, when they're locking up, they go out the back door and they still hear. Now, partly because Charles and Leah spent so much time here, and they often slept here, they barely ever went home. Their house was not far away in James Bay. And because they didn't go home, they spent the... When we're heading down this way, we have to use all of our senses, because yes, we do see ghosts, but we also smell them, like with Brady. We hear them, and down where we're about to stop is the sound of footsteps, heavy footsteps, and rattling chains that people hear more than anything else. But we also feel ghosts, and that's maybe the creepiest way we encounter them of all. When all of a sudden a cold wind whistles past your ear, the shiver runs down your spine, you feel like you're being watched, or maybe even to meet up with her in the pub. Now, one evening, though, that very evening, she was talking with another man. Brady didn't like this. A fight gets started, and I'm sorry, you're just in the right place to kill. But a beer bottle gets smashed, and Brady gets stabbed with it. The jagged end tears him open. He grabs the room, and he staggers up the stairs to try and get away. But the cigar he was smoking fell from his lips and sizzled out in a pool of his own blood.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Room
Eventually,
49.
eventually
Room
they renovated
49.
the place completely. They don't have a beer parlor down there anymore. It's just a storage area.
Mm.
But every once in a while, when the staff from your hotel go down to
Yeah.
that basement space, they know that the ghost of Brady is there. They very rarely see him, but they do smell him.
Mm.
What do they smell? Cigars.
But,
Right? Now, you're not allowed to smoke in that building anymore, so when they smell the cigars, they know who it is.
cigars. Oh,
However, they
okay.
also smell something else. Perfume.
Okay.
Charlotte.
Oh.
But they also smell the perfume up in Charlotte's room. But unlike Brady, Charlotte is often
Yeah, room
seen
49, di ba?
when they check into that room,
It was
room
in
49. You
seven.
might try and change into that room tonight.
Okay, yeah.
Room 49.
Room 49.
People open the door,
Yeah.
they smell the perfume, and they see a woman.
I wanna see.
Classic ghost, a woman with her arms outstretched, screaming, hair streaming back. And what does she say? She says, "Get away from my room."
Oh.
And that usually works, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just the Bedford Regency. For the rest of you staying in a hotel, would you like to know right now, or should I tell you just before I send you off to bed, why hotels as a class of building are some of the most haunted of all?
Oh. Now.
Later?
Yeah.
Later?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll tell you later.
Now. Oh my.
She actually lived in the hotel in the top right-hand room. You're not staying at room 49, are you?
No.
So, Charlotte was up there, child running around when there should not be unattended children running around in an office building late at night. But kids especially actually see him down by the well. So if you've got young kids, or you can borrow someone else's, bring them here. Ask them what they see when they look down there. Because time and time again, kids on our tours, for example, have experienced the boy's ghost. Kids are really sensitive to these things, that adults tend not even to allow themselves to believe. So for example, on one of my Halloween tours a few years ago, I was leading a group through the arches this way, and I was standing here talking about this building. I hadn't even mentioned the well yet, right? Or the boy, or anything about that story. But there was a man standing in the window. He was watching me. But his young daughter, who he was carrying, she was not watching me. Standing, like in her dad's arms. She was looking at something down there.
Oh.
Now, she was saying one word again and again and again, trying to get her dad's attention. And that word was?
Dad, there's a boy.
Boy. Now remember, I hadn't told that story yet, and she was from really far away, and she was very young to begin with, so this was not a trick. This was a little girl on the tour, seeing the ghost of the boy who died in that well 150 years ago. And if we stay here for long, we might see it too. But we're not going to stay here for long. Although you might want to come back here after the tour and see if he's there.
Yeah.
Because we next have to survive the journey through these arches. Where? This is not the kind of tour where I have a friend in a cheesy mask waiting to drink water. But it got stuck. Now, the well didn't look like that. Those bricks are here. It was just slippery stones. And when the miner's kettle got stuck down there, he realized it was way too dangerous for him to go in and get the kettle. But for some reason, he thought it was okay to send a 9-year-old boy in. So this story does not have a happy ending. Right? What happens when the boy climbs in, he slips, he reaches out, one of the stones comes loose, it knocks him down into the well, and the men up above could hear screaming, and they could hear rocks tumbling. And eventually the boy was crushed to death right there. Now after this, nobody would use the well anymore. They could, understandably. They covered it over, and this building was built right over top. And so nobody knew the well was even there for 100 years. It was beneath the floor. In the 1970s, they fixed this building up, they found the well, and they did something which none of you would do. Right? If you just look down this way, you'll see something down there. What is it?
Well, it's a
It's
well.
a well.
It's a
What
well.
happens? Now, it's a very strange thing to find inside a building, right?
Yeah.
The reason it's there is that the well was there first. You see, in the days of Fort Victoria, the Hudson's Bay Company fur trading post, which was just over here, Between the fort and the harbor, there was a field with a well in it. Now, in 1858, the gold rush begins, thousands of people crowd in, and they camp out by the
Oh, don't turn the lights on.
Oh. Oh, finally there's a light on here. Finally lights. Hello. Mm-mm.
Okay, so has everyone been to Bastion Square? It's a lovely area of the day, but this is one of the most haunted areas in the entire city. Many people know that in part it's because the public hangings happened in Bastion Square, behind the old jail. Well, what did the old jail look like, you ask? If you look over, just over there, there's a black and white photo on the back of that utilities box.
Yeah.
You see that? That is the old jail.
Oh.
It used to be right there. The jail was torn down to build that building, which is the courthouse. But many people know about the hangings, and they see this tree, so they assume this tree must be...
The hanging tree.
Right, but it's not. Because actually the tree's too young. But also in Victoria, we never hung anyone from a tree. We always used...
The chair and the...
And the gallows was always behind the jail. So, by going around the old courthouse building, I can take you to right where the gallows used to stand. Ready? This way. How Victoria is the unique city it has become through its history. So if you need information about that, please just stay behind. If you need directions, if you're feeling lost, please just stay behind as well. If you have questions too. But our website is easy to find, just discoverthepast.com. But thank you very much for coming, and I hope everybody sleeps really well tonight. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Is anyone feeling lost? How did you know? So, come back at Halloween time. We do special tours on Halloween. We do history tours during the daytime. Tomorrow we've got a history tour at 2 o'clock. My colleague Zach.
Abutan natin.
Okay. Now, if you're like me, and I know some of you probably are, you will not be able to resist when you walk by a vacant, notoriously haunted building like this, and it is vacant, because while it was built as the courthouse, and then it became the Maritime Museum, the Maritime Museum actually had to move out. So there's no occupant now of this place except for the ghost, which we'll talk about in a moment. So if you're like me, you probably can't help but walk by a place like this and look in the windows. Now, most of the windows of this old building are boarded up, except these ones, which is why I wanted to finish the tour here. Because after I tell you this, you too might want to look in. And if you look in and you see a man in a tall man in a long black robe sliding past, you have seen one of the most famous ghosts in this entire building. Now the robe gives it away. He's a judge, right? But not just any judge. His name was Begbie. Sir Matthew Bailey Begbie. Which means this is the judge known as the hanging judge. That's who people see. But we'll get back to him in a second. First of all, remember that before the courthouse was here, this is where the jail was. The gallows stood just behind a fence over here. Now on the days of the hangings, people would gather from far and wide. They'd bring their kids. Because you'd bring your kids to a hanging, right? Of course you would. Yeah, no Netflix, precisely. What else are you going to do? So, everyone would be there. They would listen in silence as the jail doors creaked open, and then being led out would be the condemned man or men. The jailer.
Diyan na tayo, di ba?
Saan tayo? Di ba doon? Yung front nito, tweet. Marami pala dito.
It's raining. Shut up.
Okay.
It's owned by the provincial government, and so I mean, it's not like we're looking at
I can see nothing inside.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good luck out there. Good night.
Grabe itong lugar na ito.
This the thing is like with me and Brittany, it's like she's with the dude. Look, it's really
Baka natakot ako ngayon.
Hindi naman
Tayo
ako.
ng dalawa. Actually, ano na pala ang
Oh, abandon na. Ginawa ng museum. Kasi maraming nagpapakita siguro. Saan ka pupunta?